Today on the Tipple, we're joined by someone who has a front row seat to how careers are made in FMCG. After 20 years working inside the industry, Maria Murphy is now a recruitment consultant, helping brilliant people find the right roles and helping companies bring in the talent that they can't afford to miss. So we're going to be talking about what she's learned from placing women across FMCG, some of the barriers that are still getting in the way, and the quick wins that leaders should be moving on right now. Maria, welcome to today's Tipple.
Thank you so much, Rom. And it's so lovely to see you again, seeing we worked together at Muller for a number of years.
We did, and we'll talk about that because actually you had a 20-year career in FMCG and then you moved into recruitment. So your role right now is about helping brands attract talent, helping candidates step into strong roles. And we talk a lot about the talent isn't out there. It is out there, and people like you are there to help brilliant people find brilliant roles.
Absolutely.
So what triggered that move from you? And now today, 8 years, 9 years on, why are you still just as excited about it?
Yeah. So obviously I've always been passionate about FMCG. I did food science and technology in uni and always wanted to stay in the food industry because I always thought I'd have a job working in the food industry. When I left Muller, my role was made redundant after 14 years, but it was actually a good time for me. But what they offered was career coaching. And the career coach I met was fantastic. She went through a load of work with me, and actually recruitment came out top of what she said my skill set would suit. Now, I thought I would never be a recruiter, but unfortunately, recruiters are like estate agents. We get some anyway. So I didn't think about that. But a couple of years after, there was an opportunity that came along. There was somebody who was retiring at the company I work with now who was looking for somebody to come in to take over his client base. And it was all FMCG. And I just thought, you know what, this is worth the opportunity. Try something new, stay within the industry I'm passionate about, but see if I can now start to help candidates get into the right companies, etc. And 8 years later, honestly, I love this industry. Yes, it's difficult. Most industries are, it fluctuates in terms of busy and quieter years, with the cost of living crisis affecting lots of companies and recruitment freezes. But there's the best thing, I'm sure you remember, when you were at Muller, the most exciting thing, you launch a product, it's on the shelf, you see it in store, you still probably feel that at Co-op.
Yeah.
But what I love is when I get a new brief and when I get a candidate and I place the right candidate with the right company, because it's a two-way process. It's not just trying to fill a vacancy. I have to make sure the candidate, it ticks their wish list, basically.
And in that analogy where you talk about, and you're right, there's nothing better than seeing a product that you've launched or something that you've done, executed in store and going kind of, I've played a role in that.
Yes.
But what you're talking about here is people's lives.
Exactly.
That is like next level. If you get it right, you can change somebody's life and their trajectory.
Yeah, completely. And when I interview my candidates, the first thing I always say to them is, what is the wish? Talk to me about what you're looking for, what's ideal. Because often, not often, but I'll get to the end of the process with them and I'll go, this role isn't right for you. You want this sort of culture. This unfortunate culture is different, etc. So it's making sure that what they're looking for is ticking the boxes. This role is ticking the boxes for them. And then obviously what I need to make sure is that for my client, this candidate is ticking boxes for my client.
So you will have spoken to a lot of people over those 8.5 years. As you say, both sides, from a client side, from the people that you're placing. And so today we wanted to get into a little bit around, I guess, those hints, those tips, those observations. So if you look at the candidates that you place in FMCG, and if we consider looking through the lens of raising the glass and that lens of women, what stands out for you about the women who succeed? And you can define success in whatever way you like, but if we think about the women who are going through that process and getting those roles, what qualities is it that makes a difference?
Oh, honestly, the women that I've dealt with so many women over the last kind of 8-9 years, and the women who succeed are resilient, firstly, have strong commercial acumen, but high self-awareness. because the successful women are the ones who know their self-worth, but then can talk about it eloquently with the key stakeholders in the company. And that's one of the things that a lot of us, and I used to do this as well, unfortunately, you do a really good job and you're proud of your results, but you don't talk about it. And men, a lot of men are quite good at that. And actually, we need to be the same as them, so they're the women who succeed are the ones who are good at talking about kind of their success. They're resilient. The best women as well are the ones with the kind of quieter confidence. They don't come across as arrogant. Mm-hmm. They've got high emotional intelligence, and that means they can really influence their teams and their key stakeholders as well. So they're the ones I believe, have kind of succeeded the best, really.
And so how many people do you see that come in almost with that full package versus, I would hypothesize you get a lot of women that even at the first round of talking with you probably can definitely be resilient, probably have high emotional intelligence, high self-awareness, but that having that self-awareness and having that emotional intelligence doesn't necessarily translate to that confidence.
No, it doesn't. And unfortunately, we've mentioned like imposter syndrome.
Yes.
I had imposter syndrome go through my career, etc. So if I talk to, say, a female and I say, right, tell me about your role. And often the women would say, well, we've done this, we've done that, the men will always say, I did this, I did that, and that's what I say to kind of my candidates, my female candidates. You've got amazing experience, but what you need to do is practice out loud at home, talking about your achievements, because it's on paper, you've done it, but if you don't sell that in an interview, it's not going to happen. So
it's really hard though, isn't it? Because, and I don't know whether it's a gender thing, but I see it a lot in interviews, exactly the same feedback of, we want to show that we cooperate and collaborate with people. So a lot of candidates for me will talk but actually this is the moment where we're not saying you've done everything, and we can probably see through that in an interview process if you're saying you have. What was your role in it? What makes the difference if you're not in the room?
And it's not just women. I've had some men who are like that as well, who talk about we, but I think the general overview, it's more women who don't shout about their success as much, and part of that probably is through their career, kind of some of the challenges they've faced through their career.
So if you think about those challenges or potentially the barriers for women coming into the industry now, if you were to outlay kind of the top 3 things that you're constantly dealing with or trying to rectify for women coming into FMCG, what are you seeing at the minute?
There's definitely far less graduates coming in at the moment. A lot, to be honest, it's not just for women, it's the younger guys as well. They just don't understand our industry. But I think it's more, often the Gen Zs actually can be very confident. That's the one thing that I wish the, Gen Xs were better at that. The Gen Zs can be very confident going into the industry. But I think and women often succeed in the first few years of their career. But where I've seen it start to slow down is at mid-management. And unfortunately, it's at when women get to their 30s, they decide to have families, they want to drive their career growth, but they have family responsibilities as well. 20 years ago, this ROM, I'm sure you remember, was horrendous.
I was there with you 20 years ago.
No, exactly. You'd be leaving the office of 5 to collect your children. Yeah. And people would look at you as if, why is she leaving? Well, she's a mother. She has to collect the kids. Why can't, and now that has changed a bit. So there's a lot of companies who are far better at that. But unfortunately, there's still some companies where if it doesn't offer that flexibility, and yes, I know a lot of male candidates who collect their kids. So that's much better than it was 20 years ago. But overall, I do think it's the women that are more impacted on that side at mid-management.
And I think for those people getting into mid-management now, they were probably in the industry 10 years ago, perhaps, when it was still a bit, you're the woman, you're the caregiver, and we're expecting you to leave, and we're going to, and we know some of the same people from our times at Muller in all of the careers that I've done. I know, and I've been one of those people, I know how much work I did at 7:30 onwards when the kids were in bed.
Exactly.
And I know people who were doing flexible work patterns, who would practically work a 5-day week just to protect that flexible work pattern.
Yes.
So if you were coming into the industry, then you're probably in mid-management now, and that's still been your experience.
Yes.
And I think also we've got this sandwich generation that we talk about. So those people who have had to pause their career or taken some different direction to care for the family, to maybe be the primary caregiver in that example. When it comes to who's going to care for elderly parents, salary wise,
yes,
you may be benching slightly less than your partner. So sometimes that forces women back out of the industry as well.
Yeah. And also it can, I've had candidates who have taken a couple of years off to look after their kids, have come back into the industry. And that's when they say their confidence is at the lowest, to try and build that back up. But there are, as I say, the industry has improved so much now. So many companies are offering flexible working, but unfortunately, we're not 100% there.
For women listening to this, for underrepresented groups, confidence seems to be, it's a word that we can throw out, but it's really hard. You've said there, imposter syndrome. I think a lot of us carry it around with us, and you can sometimes quieten it, but I certainly haven't found a way to make it go away completely. So we know statistically, if we look at recruitment, that women will apply if they can demonstrate everything that's asked for on a job advert. Yet we know that actually that might be slightly different for men. They will apply if they can do 60% of it. And actually, I'm here for that, because that's the headroom for growth. That's the role development.
Yes.
But we've got this element of imposter syndrome. We're not feeling confident. These can have a huge impact. How do we start helping to change the narrative for women in a way that's real practical, that isn't just where you need to be more confident?
Yeah. So I spend a lot of time with my candidates if I get if they've been out of the industry, or even people who haven't been out of the industry, their CVs, if they're not great, I will send them something to say this needs to change. The big thing I say to my candidates are, particularly women, don't self-select yourself out of the process. So exactly what you said, Ron. A lot of women would say, well, I don't have 100% of the skill set. And you can now go on LinkedIn, and if there's a job and you are interested, you can ask AI to identify, are you 100% the right fit? Are you 70%, etc. Now, most men, quite rightly, and we need to learn from them, would apply for a job if they're 60 to 70% fit for the role. Most women won't. They want to be 90, 100%. And that's why I always say to my candidates, look, you've got some fantastic experience. Yes, you may not have managed Tesco or Sainsbury's, but look at all the other accounts you've managed. Look at the achievements I've seen from your CV. You talked to me about them. Go for this role. You can demonstrate to them that you can do the job, and you've got this willingness to learn any of the extra bits that you're not quite sure of, but you can hit the ground running. So
it's really interesting, because that LinkedIn bit is almost kind of fueling this fire of, I can literally go onto LinkedIn and AI can tell me 50%, 70, 100%.
Yes, yeah.
And then it's what we do with that information. And I think you're right, getting women to realize the transferable skills, and not just necessarily in role, but if you're somebody coming back into the FMCG environment, huge skills that you've probably learnt whilst you've been out. I know my ability to plan and organise went through the roof when I was trying to tie toddlers' shoelaces. But I think there's an element in there of why we show up the way we show up. So do you think women will only apply when they can demonstrate everything, because perhaps in their career they might not have got the role, even though they could do 99% of it for reasons that they may not have been aware of? What are those dynamics that you think are at play?
Yeah, I think that's definitely the case. And that, again, is linked with not promoting yourself within companies. So it's a bit of, I'm not quite ready. I want to have 100% of the experience, and then I'll put myself forward. but you've got peers who will put themselves forward, and Gen Z will put themselves forward at 60, 70%. So that's the bit, to have the confidence to say, I can step into this role. I may not know everything about the role, but that's fine. I will learn quickly. And that's what we've all done. I stepped into recruitment. I hadn't a clue how recruitment worked, but I thought I can do it because I used to deal with recruiters, the good, the bad, the ugly. And I'm sure you did it when you moved across the table as well.
Transferable skills.
Exactly.
So there's that old adage of, it used to be, it's not what you know, it's who you know. And it's not what you know and who you know, it's who knows you. So how important are networks?
Massively. And that's what I say to all my candidates, be on LinkedIn, be visible, post, connect with people. If there are companies you like that you'd love to join in the future, follow them, comment, add thoughtful comments, etc. And be visible in your company. Join wider projects, that will expand your skill set, but you'll meet different people in your business that you wouldn't come across, full stop. And what would you think, Rom? Because obviously you've got a lot of experience broadening your skill set.
God, you should host a podcast if you're going to throw questions in. I think there is something. So I agree with the networking, and it's something that I have struggled with, being very open in my career, because I don't like, as a highly functioning introvert, it's a bit of an energy drain for me.
Yeah.
As somebody who values equity and fairness, it feels a bit, if somebody can network better, do other people get passed by? And I guess I would wrap it up with, for me, networking works when it's authentic networking.
Absolutely.
When you're at an event and somebody comes up and they're like, I love you, or I love what you've said, or I love what you're doing. You're like, oh, this feels a bit uncomfortable. And
yes,
that people can feel that. Yeah. So if networking isn't your bag and you don't want to do it, don't fake it. Find a way to grow into it a little bit. Exactly. And one of the things that I'm a big fan of is mentoring, because actually I think that helps build your network out. And it's one of the reasons why we launched our mentoring platform. Networking doesn't have to be all in your organization.
No, it doesn't.
And it doesn't have to be really senior people or really influential people. If you're networking, some of it will be, about you and your brand identity. And that will be what people say when you're not in the room. But sometimes this can help with your confidence. If you've got a great support network who are just going, I thought you're amazing at that. Completely. Then you start to go, why didn't I think I was?
Yeah. And often it's the mentors who will be able to say to you, well, this is a really good skill of yours. And you go, I didn't even think that was a skill of mine. That I just thought I did that naturally. But so mentors are really good. I always say to my candidates as well, know your colours, your discovery colours. Are you blue, red, yellow, green?
Yeah.
Because if you know your colours, and I always share the colours with my clients, but then I can tell you who's interviewing you. You can adapt your style in that interview. So if you're a blue and you're introvert and you like detail, but you're dealing with a red who's direct, brief, then adapt your style in that interview. Be still yourself, but be a bit quicker, So all of this helps, I think, basically helps kind of candidates, but helps you then, us, when we join companies, etc., and who we work with.
I think you've hit the nail on the head. I think a lot of people listening to this will have done things like Myers-Briggs and the DISC profile, all those things in your, and they're great. And you're like, oh my God, you figured me out from however many questions. But done well, people come out and do exactly what you say. If I'm red, then I need to be aware that this person is green, and I need to soften, and I need to make sure that I'm conscious about how they might be feeling. Done badly, people come out and go, I'm red, and you will treat me in the way that I need to be treated.
They say, be brief, be bright, be gone.
Yes, and it's probably the reds going, I'm red and you need to do it in this way. But I think that element of how do you use this to learn a little bit more about yourself, but the impact that you have on others as well.
Exactly. There's another thing I think that, and I always advise my candidates, particularly with female candidates, to do with pay. So we know there's a big gender pay gap, and that came out legally. I think it was 2017 when companies had to record the gender pay gap. I don't know if you were aware, but earlier this year, a consultancy called ISIOS or ISIOS did a big review on 10,000 companies, and they identified it would take 40 years in the UK for women's pay to get on a par with men. So that's an issue, firstly. Yeah. But the second issue is how we approach when we're in a looking for a role or internally looking for an increase in pay. I always tell my candidates, if you're moving job, the minimum you should move for is 10%. But if I give you an example, Ron, so if I've got a national account manager for kind of a blue chip company who's on 60K and she's looking to move, I'll say, I always ask, what are your salary expectations? And honestly, 80-90% would be 64, 65K. If I ask a male, 70% of the time, 70K, so they're doing the same job. Yeah. And unfortunately, women don't push themselves as much as men do when it comes to salary. Now, some women do, but they're the really successful ones. And that's what I say, just value your worth.
Well, it is. I was going to say it's that self-worth, isn't it?
Exactly.
But again, I've done exactly that. Somebody said to me, "What's your salary expectations?" And you go, "I don't want to price myself out. And what if they think I'm not worth it?" And again, for me, so this may not be indicative of lots of women, but for me, I do think that comes down to opportunities in the past where I feel I might not have been given an opportunity. Yeah. It's why I think women take a lot of extracurricular work on as well.
Yes.
Because if I say no to this, you might not ask me again. And so I think there's a lot systemically inside how we just are as women that shows up. But that's within your control.
Oh, completely.
And if you're working with a recruitment consultant, the good recruitment consultants are going to go, you can't command that, but you can command this.
Completely. And often, as well, when my candidates get a job offer and they're excited and sometimes they want to accept it straight away. But if I know there's a bit of movement, I'll say, this, like, again, often men will say, yeah, 65 is okay, but actually I want 67. Can you ask for that? Okay, let me go. And often they get 67 or 66. But often it's the women are like, okay, 65 is fine. But, there is that bit more. And that's actually respected by clients because, particularly in customer facing roles, if somebody's pushing for more money, they know in my business, you're going to push my customers, for better negotiations, better deals. So,
and I think you can also find out, even if you've made a decision, this is the company you want to work for. I think during this process, you can find out a little bit more about their culture. I mean, I remember we both worked for Colin at Muller.
Yes. Yeah.
And I remember joining Muller, and unfortunately, the timings of the process that I was going through meant that they coincided with me finding out that I was pregnant. Right. And I got the recruitment agency to tell Colin before anything was done.
Yeah.
And Colin told the recruitment agency to tell me, congratulations, we can't wait for you to join. Now, that for me was Colin in a bottle, right?
Yes.
You wouldn't expect anything less from him. Quite unusual because this is 18 years ago.
Yeah, honestly, back then, unfortunately, most companies would have said, oh, no, actually, pregnancy is great. That's great. But no, her skill set doesn't suit.
Yeah, and interestingly, actually, there was a conversation where you legally don't. I know I don't legally have to, but for me, it was very important.
Yeah.
And actually, the insight into the culture of the leaders through that experience for me was amazing.
Brilliant.
Like hands down, amazing.
And there still is, I think for smaller companies, that's still unconscious bias.
Yes.
Where if I'm recruiting for, I don't know, a NAM, they want somebody with 5 to 8 years experience. Often they don't say, well, sometimes they have said it and it's completely illegal, but they're like, oh, actually, no, I think maybe a man would be better for, just a...
Yeah, why would a man be better for
exactly.
it? Why?
No, exactly.
And I get that if you're a small brand, you're probably, there's nowhere for the work to go and it's a risk in it. But but what if you had somebody absolutely amazing, and then you brought somebody in for mat cover, and they were
exactly.
It's just,
there's always ways around it.
And to your point, I think some of that is an unconscious bias from them as well.
Yeah.
And it's how we have, and there's some brilliant people in the space. I think Amelia from Bold Bean is doing a lot in terms of the culture of, she's taking a couple of months out of the business that she founded, and she's been very vocal about that because she wants everybody in her organization and wider to know you can start a business and have a baby, and you can do both.
Yes.
But there's got to be a lot more people being a lot louder for
completely
that to settle through.
Yeah.
If you could wave a magic wand over, I suppose, the industry, whether it's recruitment or more broadly, what would you want to change and why?
Oh my goodness, what would I want to change? I would want more candidates to come into our industry, because, you know, there's lots of sexier industries out there, but actually FMCG is one of the most exciting, fast-moving industries there is. So if I could, definitely, I think we should do more with universities to get candidates to join us. The second one would be absolutely the pay gap. And then the third one would be diversity, you know, having more diverse teams. And a lot of that's in the interview process. So I think what blockers can happen in an interview process, we've already mentioned, women might see a role, think it's perfect for them, but they've only got 70% of the skill set. Sometimes adverts can have an unconscious sometimes candidates might unconsciously think, oh, that's not quite right for me, because it's some of the words they use, aggressive targets, dominant. There's just certain where it can be quite masculine. So some women would step back from that. The other one would be changing interviews, making the interviews more diverse. You know, I still remember kind of back in the day when I was in Amazon, going for account manager roles, I was never interviewed by a woman, but that was back in the 90s, early 2000s. That shouldn't happen now, obviously.
Yeah.
And if we moved into diversity, you know, if you're a person of colour, you know, wouldn't it be lovely if you were interviewed by a diverse group?
Yeah.
So that's kind of
because diversity drives better results for business.
Completely.
So if you take it right back to the commerciality of it, it's the right thing to do morally, but it's also the right thing to do from a commercial point of view.
Yeah.
And I think there is something we've looked in the past around languages where even putting things on the advert, like, we're not expecting you to be able to display all of these. We still want to come and have a chat with us, and just kind of almost giving that permission of, you don't have to be 100%. So as we wrap up, thank you for everything that you've shared. What are you most proud of?
Do you know what I'm most proud of? I think building my resilience, you know, through a long career with quite a lot of change. And I think what I'm most proud of now is helping candidates get their perfect roles. That's what makes me the most excited, really. And having been in the recruitment industry nearly 9 years now, I have seen some of my candidates that I thought were fantastic. And, you know, a few years later, they're with the same company. They've been promoted. I had one guy went in as an AM. He's a sales director. You know, I've had women do the similar things. So that's kind of what I'm most proud of, really, seeing kind of the candidates I've placed and how they've, you know, where they've gone, really. And
the impact you've had on them to get them there.
I do, honestly. I spend a lot of time with my candidates, and I'm sure some recruiters would think that's just a waste of time. It's not, you're not driving revenue, but I think it's really important. And actually, some of my successes with new clients have been old candidates who, you know, said, yeah, Maria, I really enjoyed working with you, and now I'm at this company, and could you recruit for me? And I'm, great, okay, that would be
full circle.
Lovely. Exactly.
Look, thank you ever so much. There will be people listening who will be going, actually, I want to connect. So they can find you, Maria Murphy, on LinkedIn.
Yes,
I'm sure there'll be people from both sides of the table, whether it's recruitment or supporting people into organisations. And without putting you on the spot, I'm sure you'd be happy just to have some chats if there's anything that's come up from today.
That would be lovely. And if I could just have one message kind of to all your listeners, I would say I'd love listeners to take away kind of this: don't underestimate yourself. This is all the women out there. Do not underestimate yourself. Believe in your skill set. Practice at home. talk about your skill set to your husband, to your kids, to whoever, the dog, whoever, and sell your skill set, because, you know, you can get a seat at that table of the company you aspire to if you put kind of the work in and build your confidence, basically.
Really good point to end on. You've worked hard to get to where you are. Don't silence yourself.
Exactly.
Maria, thank you very much. And that's it for today. If you've enjoyed this episode, make sure you follow so you never miss an episode. And if you're looking to build your network or get support in your FMCG career, join our Raising the Glass network and our mentoring scheme. All details available on our website. But for now, that's us. We hope you enjoyed the tipple. Thank you
so much. Bye.